Welcome everyone to the show today. So my treat for you is a speaker that I saw at Agape for the first time in 2008. Mary Morrissey rocked the house that day and said some really profound things that really had changed my life. And I'll tell you about those later. She's the author of 2 books, both of which I have, No Less Than Greatness and Building Your Field of Dreams. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, we do have a video. So come on over to jjflazanes.tv to see us. We're going to have a really great conversation today. And if you're here on the video, you want to click below and take the podcast with you. Again, that way you don't have to watch the video. You can be doing multiple things at the same time and listen to the show. So welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, JJ.
So I want to tell everybody the story. So I don't remember the entire presentation, but the pieces of it. So you talked about your kidney and I remember one of the quotes that you said, it was about just the crack of like a little crack of the belief of like borrowing someone else's belief. That was a big one. One of the quotes you said is some people live 90 years and some people live 1 year 90 times. That was another quote that was in there. So you had a lot of really good gems in that talk. And I was so excited and so with you. You're such a great storyteller and you're such a great presenter to get the point home of here's what I want to weave in and let me demonstrate this in a story. It was also probably one of the first times I had heard someone from a stage such as Agape talk about the connection of our emotions and our physicality and how looking at all of the different negative emotions that cause what happened to your kidney and about the visualization and the visioning of sweeping all the rest of the negative anger that you may have into that kidney so that when they took it out, they took all the rest of the negative with it. And again, just really powerful pictures. And I know, so today, guys, we're going to be talking about the 3 steps to dream building because Mary is an expert in dream building and she's built an entire business around helping people build their dreams. So with that, Mary, where do we start with this 3 steps to dream building? If you want to add, anything that's new for you right now, I know that was 12 years ago that I first saw you and you endorsed my first book. Thank you, Fit to Love. So where do you want to start?
I think since you brought that story up, because it's really how I started, that would be a good place for our listener today. And the viewers, first of all, hi. Glad you're here with JJ, and I appreciate being here. And let me just take about 5 minutes and share that because it sets up the 50 years of study that I've done in the art and science of transformation, how we actually change and sustain real change in our lives, quantum leap kind of change. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. I had a high school experience like most young girls dream about. I was class vice president on the drill team, had to lead them a junior play, homecoming princess that year. And at the end of my junior year in high school, I was pregnant. My high school boyfriend had came home on spring break. I got pregnant. May 1, I tell my mom and dad I'm now pregnant. My mother wept for me as if I had died. I had a hasty 10-person wedding. This is 1967. And a couple of weeks later, as I'm finishing my junior year in high school, the principal of the high school called me in his office and said, "Are these rumors I'm hearing about you true?" And I said, "Well, if the rumors are that I'm pregnant and married in that order, then yes, they're true." And he just put his head in his hands and he said, "Mary, you have great honors and terrific grades, but you will not be allowed to return here for your senior year in high school. And if you want to get a real diploma, then there's a place you can go in Portland. It's not held during daylight. It's after dark. It's where the pregnant girls and the delinquent boys go to high school." I had always wanted to be a teacher. And even though I was pregnant, I saw this as a delay, but not a stop sign that I wasn't going to go to college at some point. So I did want a high school diploma. So I drove my car across the river in a part of Portland I hadn't even ever been allowed to drive in after dark. And that was my new high school. Girls who were either pregnant or had babies and guys who were delinquents. My best girlfriends that I'd grown up with, there were 4 of us, and we were just locked in step for 10 years of our friendship. There are other girls' mothers got together and said their daughters can no longer see me, as if what I had was contagious or. So my son was born in December of 1966, and so what I said was it was 1966 when I got pregnant, and then 1967 I got my high school diploma in May, and in July I was in an intensive care ward with a Portland hospital, diagnosed with fatal kidney disease. Now in 1967 there are no kidney transplants, and there are no dialysis clinics. We don't have that yet. And not only one kidney, but both kidneys had active nephritis. One kidney was totally destroyed with nephritis. The other kidney had 50% destruction, active nephritis. This is a death sentence. And all of the wonderful MDs and other people were very, very sorry, but they don't have anything they can do to help me, except if we can get the blood toxin level in my body reduced enough to sustain a surgery to have the right kidney removed. Maybe I will have 6 months to live. We're talking today about kind of the emotional side of what happens in our lives. I was in that hospital bed, JJ. I felt not only terrified, but it was just like the best shot I'm going to get is 6 months. I may never see my little boy. I never walk. I may never, I mean, all of the things you dream for a child, I'm not even going to be there for. And finally, the night before the surgery was scheduled to remove that right kidney, a woman walked in my room who identified herself as a chaplain offering prayer for people who were going to, she said, I get the 10 most serious surgeries each time I come. Your name's at the top. Would you like somebody to pray with you? The God of my upbringing was not a friendly place to go when you had felt like you'd really screwed up. And clearly I had screwed up. I got kicked out of my high school. My best friends couldn't see me anymore. I was an outcast. I'm relegated to be with delinquents. But I was so scared. And I said, oh, okay. And she pulled her chair next to my bed. She didn't do anything that looked like prayer at all. She talked to me. And she said, would you be willing to tell me what's been going on in your life the last year or two? And I told her my story, at the end of which she looked at me and she said, Mary, something that I didn't understand then, but over the years have thought more about it. She said, Mary, everything's created twice. Today, I would say I had no landing page for that in my brain. Everything's created twice. And she said, you know that. Actually, everybody knows it. Almost nobody knows the power of knowing this. The bed you're laying on, the nightgown you're wearing, the sheet covering you, the walls, the ceiling, all the machinery you're hooked up to. It had to be a thought before it could be a thing. And now that you're considering how everything actually is created twice, could you consider the possibility? She said, I've heard your story. I hear how much you love your little boy, but I also hear how much you've been hating yourself. You feel like you shamed yourself, you shamed your school, you shamed your family. And now that you're considering how everything is created twice, could you consider the possibility that that toxic thinking, that self-loathing thinking could actually be the genesis or have a relationship with the toxicity that's rampaging your body and threatening your life? Because you know, Mary, that if you think embarrassing thoughts, your cheeks get red. And you know, if you think scary enough thoughts, your heart beats fast. Your heart beats faster. So consider this. And she said, could you? And then she asked me a question. So this is all happening very quickly. And then she asked me a question. And she said, could you believe, think of infinite possibilities. There are infinite possibilities in the universe. Could you imagine that there is a possibility where we say some words, in the morning the doctors come in to get you for surgery and they look at you and they say, you're better, let's test you. They test you and they say, gosh, we don't know what happened, but you're perfectly fine. You can go home. Could you believe that's possible? And I told her the truth. No, I don't believe that's going to happen to me. I believe way more in my pain than this woman who walked in. And then she said, all right, if you can't believe that could happen, could you believe this? Could you believe we could say words and join together in the possibility that we could sweep everything that's toxic in your body, place it in the one kidney, and when that's removed, instead of you getting worse, you could get better. Could you believe that? I had no belief in me of that, but I could tell she believed it was possible. She believed that in all the possibilities, there had to be one because we just thought it up, where I could get well. And so now this is before we had, Sheldrake quantum field theory, before we had David Talbot write Holographic Universe out of Stanford. We didn't know much about any of this mind-body. Before there was a mind-body clinic at Harvard Medical Teaching Hospital. We didn't have those things back in 1967. And I said, well, I don't know if it's probable, but maybe it's possible. She said, that's all we need, which we know now through physics, is what's required. One corner of your mind open to the possibility. And she said, let's work with that. And then she told me what to do. She said, when you have the surgery tomorrow, when you come back, your mind is going to be busy first with pain. That's going to happen after you have a surgery. After that ebbs, your mind, your thinking mind, is going to want to go down the well-worn paths of thinking that you've been generating over the last couple of years. Thoughts that will generate shame, that will generate self-loathing. So what I want you to do is do this. It's a 3-step process. Whenever you start to notice a self-loathing thought, say, no, that left with the kidney. And then immediately, Mary, imagine you're walking up some steps to a school and you have a little boy's hand in yours. Feel the warmth of his hand in yours. You're walking into into the hallway, and there's a happy kindergarten teacher welcoming your son. He's 5 years old, and he is jumping up and down. He's so happy to go to kindergarten, and you see your son go to kindergarten. Hear the click, click, click of your heels down the hallway and around the corner, and there's your classroom, and you're a teacher. Because she had asked me, what would I do if I could live? I knew two things I would do. I'd raise my little boy, and I'd become a teacher. And she said, then fast forward, and you're sitting in an auditorium or a stadium, and all these caps and gowns, you hear your son's name called, feel the pride of your son graduating, and you had this time to be with him, and all the many moments that helped him come to this moment, and how such celebration you feel for your son, and your teaching career is growing. Then fast forward in your mind, and you're sitting in the front row of a wedding, and you're the mother of the groom, and your son's marrying the love of his life, and your teaching career is flourishing. Just keep repeating those. They did the surgery the next day. And that first week, of course, was a blur to me. But in the second week, they noticed that my numbers had, instead of continuing to be worse, which they had told my family that was gathered, that that one kidney was destroyed. They removed it. The other one was withered. It was nephritic, is what they call it, full of nephritis. They didn't know how much time I would have. Time would tell. But now the numbers had stabilized. After 2 weeks, they let me go home in an ambulance to my parents' house where my son and husband were living, so they could help take care of our son while I was in the hospital. And I was so weak I couldn't even lift my head off the pillow, and had to keep going in for tests. But my numbers not only stabilized, they started to improve and improve. And over the course of about 5 months, at the end of that, I'm sitting my numbers just kept improving. And then I'm sitting with the surgeon, the urologist, the specialist, my general practitioner, and others, and they're scratching their heads and they're saying, we have no science for why that one kidney. And the surgeon's saying, we saw that kidney. It was potholed with nephritis. We don't have any science for why that kidney is functioning as a whole, perfect kidney. We don't know how long this will last or if it'll last. But whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I didn't actually know what I was doing. I was what we would call it today an unconscious competent. I was doing what she told me to do, which would take me a number of years, actually, probably 4 or 5 more years to get curious, like what was really happened there. And I began to explore everything I could find in the field of not only psychology, the new physics that were arising, but all the world's religions. How do things that we don't know how to explain happen? And of course, over time, discovered that this is not what we call miracles or simply surprises, but there's an art and a science to everything that happens. Nothing happens by happenstance. It's not a coincidence or an accident. It can be a surprise to us, but it's all, there are infinite and invisible and immutable laws that govern how all things occur. And when we work with them the way they work consciously, that we have amazing ability to transform our life. So I studied all of this for a decade, got my undergraduate degree, my master's degree in counseling psychology, earned an honorary doctorate in humane letters, and continued the study. I opened my first work in 1981, and I've been teaching this and working with people and had the privilege, like you, JJ, working with people all over the world, helping them transform results, many of which, and some of which have been there for decades. Whether they're in health or relationships, or what we're doing with our time and talent, our vocari, time and money freedom. I believe we're meant to not just be wealthy in one area of life, but wealth in all areas of life, so that we're not wealthy in money and bankrupt in our health or our relationships. And many people get lopsided. So the idea, of course, I'm known as the premier trainer in the field of dream building. Lots of people have dreams, but don't understand the art and the science of dream building. So those dreams stay in their invisible state, longing for them, wishing for them, wanting for them, and sometimes, as I said, for long times.
One of the things we know now, I now hearing your story again, and I've heard it a couple times, but what just became really clear to me that I didn't know 12 years ago are the combination of quantum physics and epigenetics, right? Two of the sciences that created the outcome that you had and the power of that. And I think your story, I'm glad you shared it, because it is so powerful for people to hear that, and how amazing and divine timing that you had a nurse practitioner, chaplain person, right, who was so forward thinking in the power of this as a way to not only save your life but create your future, and really be that angel leading you into what then will become your expertise and passion and how you transform the planet. So I also remember in that talk, and I know that when you do it more of in a long form, there's a quote that you use that I used at my wedding. It's the Henry David Thoreau quote. Can you share that?
I sure can. I cared enough about this quote to put it in my first book, Building Your Field of Dreams, which became a PBS special, but not in its entirety. As an author, as you know, you can put an ellipsis and shorten the quote down. But it would be years later. I wrote that book and published it in 96. It was 2007. So a number of years later that I was actually in Concord where this occurred, and got the book Walden, written by Henry David Thoreau, about his experiment with life. He wanted the development. Let me just say, Concord, Massachusetts is where the two major revolutions of the United States occurred. The first shot that began the Revolutionary War happened in Concord, and 60 years later, maybe not even that long, 50 years later, there was the development of the second revolution, which was a revolution of thinking, transcendentalism, the idea that there is that in every one of us that transcends or is more powerful than our conditions, circumstances, and situations. But we have to be able to be aware of how to work with that part of ourselves that's invisible, not just our physicality, what's going on in the internal state of us. Or another way to say that is we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We're more than just our humanness. So the quote is this. So Henry says, I went to the woods, and he wasn't a hermit. He did live in the woods for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days, but he didn't just stay there. He was a surveyor. He was going to town, and he was a lecturer, and he went to his mother's house every Sunday night to get his laundry done. He was a bachelor. But his experiment with life, he said, I went to the woods because I didn't want, when I came to die, I went to the woods to do an experiment and learn to live on the green growing edges of life and really learn what life had to teach me, because I didn't want, when I came to die, to find out I hadn't even really lived. And at the conclusion of his experiment with learning how to live in what we could call the green growing edges of our own becoming, really vitally alive, not just kind of sort of moving along through life, but that feeling that rises up inside of you naturally, I love my life. How do you live there? And he wrote at the end of that a conclusion in which he said, I have learned this at least by my experiment. If one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams, endeavoring to live the life they've imagined, they pass an invisible boundary. New, more universal, more liberal laws begin to establish themselves around that person. The old laws are rearranged in one's favor. Nevertheless, one begins to live with the license of a higher order of beings. Those who have broken free, those who have, where other people go, wow, they're so extraordinary. Well, they found how to work with that part of themselves that is more than we appear, and produce what we would call extraordinary, game-changing, world-changing results. That power is in every single one of us. So I realized this is a code for how we can use the art and science of transformation. So right now, I imagine all of your listeners have something they'd love to change in their lives. They have something they'd love to bring forth, some kind of a result, a dream you have. So bring it to mind. And if you were living that life, what would it be like? What would it feel like? And there's some more we can talk about this, and maybe even in this podcast. But the idea is to have something really pictured clearly, vividly, distinctly in your mind.
Well, let's go over the 3 steps to dream building. So a lot of my listeners are very aware of law of attraction and epigenetics. Dr. Bruce Lipton was on the show, and so this is something I kind of pound into people in terms of in terms of focusing on the possibility. And you brought that up a couple times, and I know that's something that I really appreciated about you, because again, this whole conversation around dreams, around realization, embodiment, visioning, the power that we have that most people don't really recognize or know. They've never been educated really in different ways on the sciences, and even if there aren't sciences, but on the miracles of life, on the things that are unexplainable and how that happens, and why we're so quick to limit ourselves, why we're so quick to believe conventional people or wisdom or the narrative of the day. Why is it that we don't seek alignment and downloaded information and internal guidance more than? Because just like you with the chaplain, and borrowing her belief, borrowing and seeing how passionate she believes. Why aren't some people taking that belief, like whether it be from you or me? I'm freaking 100% clear about so many things I have a lot of Sag in me. I know you're a Gemini. I know that I've searched the world for answers for things, interviewed people, talked to people, read books, been in places, and not that I have all the answers, but I have the answers that make sense to me and that feel in alignment, that bring peace and centeredness and trust and surrender and allowing all at the same time. And I know people are really searching for that. They don't really believe. They have questions. They're letting other people's fears and criticisms get in the way of their dreams. I did it too. We all done it. We've all done it. It's part of that contrast that we need to clarify and keep going and course correct. So in today, I'd love to take the rest of this interview, and of course I want to come in here too, and talk about the 3 steps to dream building, and to give everybody right now, guys, do these steps, because we're going to be ending the year or starting the year. And I want you to just take a second and do that reflection about what 2020 taught you, because whether it was good for you or bad for you, ultimately it taught you something. It showed you something that you want or need more than you're giving your time and attention to. And the only way, I believe, and I'm going to guess Mary does, you're going to get the things that you want, is to put the time and effort into creating it in your mind and with your emotions and with these steps that we're going to talk about, so that you can actualize it. It isn't just going to happen randomly. There does have to be a focal point of time, attention, emotion, and belief that goes into the creation of that. So let's start with what step number 1 to dream building is.
Step number 1 is vision. It's blueprinting a life you would absolutely love. Most people ask the wrong question. What can I do? What will my money currently allow me to do? Dreaming has nothing to do with that. You want to ask yourself the question, if it's 3 years from now, because here's the truth, if you keep breathing another 365 days times 3, you're going to have a life, and our life reflects the vibration we've been living from. So vision and vibration work together in dream building. It's the art, it's the science. I want to say something, because your audience is very familiar with the law of attraction. Why so many people get off track with the law of attraction is they think all they have to do is think about it. And that does not, it's better than not thinking about it for sure, but that's not what will move the molecules that create the new forms and structures of your life. The law of attraction actually, and there are many, think about the law of electricity. As humans, we've been here 150 to 200,000 years, and just up to 100 years ago or so, if you wanted light after dark, you had to light a fire or an oil lamp. And then one man believed that there was an invisible law that we could learn its code for and change our whole world. There was a science to that, and we learned how to wire to code. And every building on the planet that has electricity is wired to code, whether the source of it is solar or the grid. It's all the same. And it's the same thing with how results are currently happening in our lives right now. We do have thoughts. You don't get to not have thoughts. You're going to have thoughts. What are those thoughts? Because they have an impulse to them. There's a vibration to them. We are bihemispheric in our brain. There's a fluid that surrounds the brain and goes up and down the spinal cord. It picks up that signal and that vibration, and it communes and communicates it to the entire body, every fiber, every tissue, every organ, every cell, and it doesn't end with our body. We're in a sea of energy. And so we're communing and communicating and transacting with this energy, and it is responsive and intelligent beyond measure. It reflects at the level of the major dominant vibration we're coming from. So it does no good to say, I want this, but my energy and my focus is on trying to get what I've got to change, but not really coming from the vibration of what I want to achieve. Having a detailed vision helps, because once you design a life you would absolutely love in your mind that has nothing to do with your current conditions, That woman said, Mary, imagine walking a little boy into school and click, click, click your heels, and there's a classroom. We didn't talk about how I would get well, what I'd have to do to get well, where I would get the money to go to college, and who would babysit him while I was there. We didn't talk about any of that. We just landed in a place that is what a life I would love living. You want to land in your mind, design it. If you were living that life, what would be happening? You'd be in the picture. It wouldn't be out there in your mind someplace. You'd be in the picture having that life. You'd be, want a dream house? Where in the dream house are you standing right now? What are you seeing? I mean, for me, when I dreamed one of my first dream houses, my husband, Joe, I wanted a kitchen island that was big enough so 20 people could stand around it so I could have my adult kids and my grandkids. And I'd go imaginally and stand at that island and wipe it down and put out some food and they'd be running around, and I was having the experience. So you want your vision to be something you can step inside of. And the answer to my understanding, why I think people don't take the kind of things you're talking about, why don't they think this way instead of this way? We've been trained for decades and decades, years and years and years, in what Thoreau called common hour thinking. If you do this, if you advance confidently in the direction of your dream, you can't advance in a direction you don't have an idea of. You've got to build the idea. You've got to build the blueprint of exactly what you would love in your mind. Write it down. Then you've activated both sides of your brain. There's a stronger signal of attraction, vibration, that dictates and communicates to the energy that's all around us. And you cannot get to your dream. You can never get to your dream. You have to come from it. You come from it by moving to the vibration of living in that dream when it's not even, nothing in your world looks like it's happening yet. But you're practicing being the person who's living that life. So the person who's living the life you love, when they're standing washing dishes, what are they thinking? They're not thinking, oh, is this ever going to work? And oh my God, I've tried so hard. That's not what they're thinking. They're thinking, I'm so grateful for my life. I'm grateful. And you're generating a state of being one with the vision you're holding. Not easy. It's not easy, especially to do it on your own. But you can. The important thing is you can. And keep coming and listening to JJ. You're going to get support every time she puts something up. That'll help you stay on track and stay on point with this. The first step is vision. You got to have a clear vision.
Well, we have your building the vision of your dreams meditation. I'm going to, Mary offered to give us a free gift today, guys. So you're going to get even more detailed, led through how to do this and make it even more solid in your mind. But I love the word blueprinting. So that blueprinting, detailed vision. I also love that you just said you have to live from it. You're not going to it. You're in it, and you're in it. And I do a meditation in my 30-day manifestation challenge that is an 8-minute visualization of something like that, but it's not quite, I go through the senses. It's not quite as detailed as what you're talking about. Because even when you ask that question, I'm going to be moving and buying my dream house soon also. And while I have certain parts of the house that I know I want to look a certain way and how it feels, I haven't even done that work yet because I'm just sort of allowing it to sort of just happen at the right time. And I'm not necessarily married to it has to be in one way, but I know that I can kick it up a notch to a certain couple places within it to really realize that and make the momentum go a little bit faster. Not that I'm in a rush. I'm totally like allowing everything to happen. But so the blueprinting. So let's just review step one. You called it blueprinting and visioning, or?
No, blueprinting your vision.
Blueprinting your vision.
Yeah, you're blueprinting, you get it on paper, but the visioning part of that is there's a reason you want a dream house. It's more than the current home you're living in. That defines a dream house. It's something more than what you've experienced, whether it's more space or you want to be clear on what it is that house will do for you that the current house won't do. And if it offers more space, where do you want that space to be? So, I wanted, at the time I was dreaming that first dream house, I had inherited all kinds of, over the years of my study, wonderful books, all from the 1800s and early 1900s as this awareness with transcendentalism. It's just now really finally becoming, I remember dreaming years ago, JJ, with a girlfriend of mine, can you imagine if something on these ideas actually ever was on the New York Times bestseller list? And now, I mean, you're a best-selling author. I mean, it's so available, 50 years later, that it's just remarkable how easy it is to find. But people don't find it because they're trained in common hour thinking. Only about 3% right now of our planet understands that they really can change their lives, that they're not a victim of circumstance, situation, and condition. And the way to change life is to move circumstances, situations, and conditions. That's what Thoreau called common hour thinking. He said, if you advance confidently in the direction of your dream, not trying to get to your dream, endeavoring to live the life you've imagined now, living the life you've imagined now, how would you feel? What would you be speaking? You don't have to have all the money to get the big dream house or anything else to have it in you. And when you do that, you move naturally into phase 2. There's blueprinting, and bridging is phase 2, where you're bridging your vibration from the old pattern, I want it, it's out there, to I'm coming from it, from the vibration that's a match for your dream. But you can't match that vibration unless you know what the vibration is. In the same way, when you turn on the television, if you don't want CNN, you pick up the remote control and you flip it to Discovery or Home and Garden or Romance or whatever else you want to watch. It's the same. The life you're watching right now is a direct output of the vibration that you've been tuned to most often. I pick up my cell phone. There's a direct link between this phone and my husband, no matter where he is, if I use the right vibration, if I use the right frequency. And we see it all the time, but we don't think somehow that it really is how it's working in us as well. So the bridging is a process of learning to come from the dream instead of trying to get to the dream. And why it's important to listen to this podcast, because it'll help you stay on a vibration that's connected to possibility and openness and strategies and tools.
Yeah. And mostly, and also empowerment. And that's sort of the difference, I think, of, like you said, I think it's amazing that in 50 years you can attest to this was weird, and at only 3%, we're still at only 3%. And while I guess I needed to hear that today, because in the current narrative, it's hard to be courageous without feeling the effects of the shaming or the judgment. And when you have it enough, like before masks, before, in a situation where it wasn't obvious, like you couldn't spot the people that were in disconnection and living from fear and basing their judgments in fear. And now you can very clearly see all of the people who give up their power on a regular basis to the fear and the narrative and disconnection and disempowerment. And so for me, I think that was really powerful, because I've been looking for the flip, the pivot thought of, because that's who I am, and I've been stuck in not being able to figure it out. And rather than looking at what is, and I know all this, but again, I hadn't figured that, needed that extra bump of okay, send me over the edge. And that 3% just did, because what that tells me is, especially with my audience and the people who are attracted to the show and the people that are attracted to your message, that are in your programs, that are buying your books, that if we only represent 3%, oh my gosh, there's so much more coming. And how exciting is it to be on the leading edge of that and to watch that number grow? Because I believe Dr. Christian Northrup's been on the show a couple of times, and we talked about that great awakening that's happening right now, this great awakening that if we hold that vision of that awakening, if we can move that needle from 3%, even to 5%, almost doubling, because I know so many people who thrive on this frequency, but it's hard to sustain in their life because there aren't that many people doing it, or because they haven't committed completely, or they haven't taken the boundaries necessary to say and discern, this isn't good for me. I'm not going to do that right now. I get too pulled into your stuff. So again, that is why we have the show. And that's why I'm having people like you on. So guys, again, we're going to be giving away the Building the Vision of Your Dreams meditation at the end of the show. So stay tuned at the end of the show. We've got blueprinting your vision, and now we have bridging. And I love, was it your ex-husband or current husband an architect? No, I don't know why I thought of the architect, because you're using, the blueprinting and the bridging. It's very architectural, but it is all very, mechanical it's taking that vision and making it concrete. And I think that's so powerful for people, because again, even if they just visualize the blueprint and then the bridge, we've now created something tangible, and we can take this out of a woo-woo idea, metaphysical.
Everything's created twice. It comes from that first, when she said everything's created twice. First, you build it. First, it's in your mind, and then it has to start that way. And then if you coalesce around it and focus on it and energize and act on that frequency, it must and does by spiritual law form itself right into, because it's already doing that. It's not like now it does that. It was doing it all along, only now you're consciously working with these invisible laws in the way they work, just like we work with electricity. If we want light, we got to work with it the way it works. And if we want change in our lives, real lasting, sustainable, expansive, producing change, we got to work with those invisible laws the way they work. And so that's why it's important to listen to you. So yeah.
And you. Okay, you ready to move to number 3?
Yeah, so let's make sure that we understand they work together, because we're talking about dream building. And you heard me say earlier, lots of people have dreams, but they don't understand the process of dream building. So vision, vibration. Once you have a clarified vision that you step inside of it and you're feeling it as if it's real, there's a vibration to that. So you practice coming from that vibration while you're doing your life. And building means you're taking some action step, not just now and then. If you had a brand new baby, how many times a day do you think you'd feed it? Numerous.
As often as it would need.
That's right, numerous. And the same thing with a vision. It's like a newborn. It's born in you, in your mind. It has to be fed and nurtured on a regular, repeated basis, or it's because now and then produces now and then results. Kind of sort of move to that vibration, produces kind of sort of results. It's a practice. But that's why you want to pick something that matters enough to you, or as Napoleon Hill would say, it needs to be a burning desire. It's something that you not only want the result of that, which you do want. You want that dream house. You want the business. You want the love of your life, whatever it is you do, or the health. You do want that. But what you really want is the growth that comes with it, because that just opens the door to all kinds of things that you'll grow to bring forth over time as you learn to do this process. Building, blueprinting, bridging. And in the building phase, if one advances confidently in the direction of their dream, endeavoring to live the life they've imagined. So you put on, as you pick your clothes in the morning, you put on something. Put on the mindset of being the person who's building their dream. And when it doesn't look like it's happening here, right in front of you, and you've been trained to look to current circumstances for permission or evidences, you have to say something to yourself. So you're holding your vision in mind, and it's not happening out here. Clearly it's not happening, and it's been 2 weeks or it's been 2 months, and my whole life hasn't changed. There are internal things that are shifting that you can't see if you stay with it. So you just simply say to yourself, you look at the facts, the ones you want to shift, you just say, this is simply what it looks like. What's the vibration, the picture in my mind, it's all coming together. It's all coming together. And there are action steps to take every single day. When people say, I've done everything I can do, Thomas Edison, arguably the most prolific inventor ever to walk this planet, who invented because he had an intention for it, a major invention every 6 months, a minor invention every 6 days. And he used the same process of coming from the vibration that was a match to what he wanted to create. And he had a way of thinking that helped him keep going. When he was asked, how'd you sustain over 10,000 failures on your way to the incandescent bulb and the system by which it could be taken globally? He just looked, they said his eyebrows went up. He said, failure? I never had a failure. It was all feedback. We're going to get some feedback along the way. And all of it is for our own awareness growth. What you want to shift in your life, it will be evidence of awareness shift or vibration shift in you. So that building part is very, very important, which means you're taking some action step today that comes from being the person who's living the life you've imagined. What does that person do today? So you're grounding. For the flow that we call electricity to move through the house, there has to be a ground wire. The circuitry has to move. Same thing here. We can't just think about it or kind of want it. We have to wire and fire from that frequency that translates into the action steps we're taking today. There's always something. So when Edison said, when you think you've done everything you can do, remember this, you haven't. There's always something more you can do, a baby step you can make. What can I do? You know, a power question you can ask the infinite side of your nature. We all know how to go on the internet. The internet, as wide and vast and wonderful as it is merely the veneer, really, because what it contains is everything that humans have learned, stored, recorded in about the last 8,000 years. So wonderful, bright, light stuff, some dark, different stuff on there. You pick where you go because you dictate your interest into that search bar, and that's a vibration. It brings up everything of that frequency that you've dictated in there. That internet, as vast and wide and wonderful as it is the veneer to the mind you think with, the mind of the infinite. And you do transact and interact with that mind in the way you think and feel. And so if you're building a dream, you get a great blueprint, you practice being the person who's living that life, and you ask a question, what can I do and give it time specific? What can I do in an hour to move my dream forward? What could I do in 5 minutes? I have found that 5-minute power moves will absolutely change your frequency and shift your direction. You're going down life's highway, you just shift 1 degree. 6 months down the road, you're in a whole new place. But you have to keep doing it, coming from that vision. And you're going to find over time that you're going to be thinking differently, and you're going to be feeling differently, and you're going to be choosing differently. But in the beginning, you cause yourself to do it because the dream matters that much to you. It's something that you really care deeply about, and you want that change, plus you want the growth that applying the system will bring you.
So 3 is the building of it. So here's what I really love about this in a context. I just did a webinar about Think and Grow Rich in terms of building your business with the law of attraction. And, you know, and there's sometimes can be the disconnect, or how does law of attraction fit in here when you're talking about getting into a frequency, when you're talking about not efforting. And here's what I love about what you just said. So it's not to take action for action's sake, which so many business coaches and coaches tell people to do. Just take action, just take action, just take action. That's the wrong advice for so many people, because without a blueprint and a direction and a commitment to the feeling of what it is I want and the clarity of what that is, don't just take action, because you're spinning your wheels doing nothing good, and you're staying in a frequency of lack, limitation, and scarcity that you've been in this entire time, and action is not going to bring you anything because you don't even know where you're going. So it's the idea that these of the momentum and the action taking only after the blueprint, only after the recognition of the bridge to the frequency you want to be on, and then you take action in the direction of those and that support that, not just random action. And that's why for a long time, it took me a while to get into the business space, because I had so many people who were so money focused that, again, they would be out of balance, and their health and their relationships were terrible. And I'm like, I'm not going to model you. You do not represent a whole person to me. You do not represent balance. This is not an exchange of, I want money and I'm willing to give up my life for it. I want all of the things, and I don't think anyone needs to sacrifice to get all of the things. So it's only in the recent year and a half that I stepped into the money game of the mind, body, soul, adding money to it, because I understood the vision of competition, collaboration, not competition, coming from abundance, not scarcity, building wealth and health at the same time. And there's no substitution. And kind of coming out of that mentality of what sort of the business world, the business coaches, the business mentors, not everybody, of course, someone like you or someone like me aren't doing that, but a lot of people are. And they're wanting them to take action. They're wanting them to lose sleep at night, just taking action. And I thought, oh, this is spinning your wheels. This doesn't make any sense, because the one thing I love about the law of attraction and the message is leverage. And that's what I get to do on this show. That's what you get to do through the programs that you're creating, is create leverage in the frequency that we want to connect with people, because that's how that spreads. That's how I can do a launch and do a 6-figure launch from my podcast that didn't require efforts that I needed to make because I created momentum. It was all leveraged. And again, versus all this stuff people do over here, this stuff that people do over here, and they're spinning their wheels and they're so tired. Are you tired, guys? Because that's not the message here. The message here is to use these 3 steps to dream building and do them. Because when you do them and you follow them, then any action you take isn't wasted effort. It creates momentum. It creates belief. It takes you closer into your dream. It gets you exercising the parts of your brain, creating those new neural pathways of belief and new, if nothing else, take action towards your dream to create a new neural pathway of possibility so that you can recognize it and realize it when it does happen. So I love that. And I got that super clear. Because even Napoleon Hill doesn't do it that well. I mean, because it almost can sound a little too masculine, a little too efforting, a little too aggressive. It's not saying don't have that action. Just fuel it with the right things. Fuel it with the blueprint. Fuel it with the emotions. Fuel it with the where do you want to go. So I think that's a beautiful 3-step process that people can absolutely take. And I know we're going to be giving them the building your vision of your dreams meditation. Can we talk about what that and like how to use that and when to use that? And yeah,
sure. One of the things I want to say at this point too is that those of you that want health, that your major area you want to transform your life is health. What the woman who came to my bed said to me that was really powerful was she said, Mary, wanting to get well is not a big enough dream. Health is foundational to the life you want to live. So yes, you want to get well for the purpose of what? I was raise my little boy and become a teacher. So that's what we're going to focus on. We're not going to focus on your body getting well. We're going to focus on what you're doing with dynamic, alive-making health. And that's why you want to build a comprehensive vision. Your health, yes, in service of your relationships. I mean, do you want that love of your life, or do you want to go deeper with the love of your life you have? Or are you going to gather some new friends? Joe and I are older. We got married in our 50s, and we were married 15 years. And we didn't have couple friends. So we wanted couple friends that were smart, bright, aware, transformational, and loved each other, not just tolerate. There are couples who stay together, but they're not really that much fun to be with. We wanted them crazy about each other. And so we dream built 3 amazing couples in our lives that we hang out with and travel with and have fun with. And now we Zoom with. You can create anything you want that you'll get in harmony with. You can have anything you're in harmony with. That's why doing this process puts you in harmony with what it is that you would love. So this meditation is a great place to start for the blueprinting process, because once you know the blueprint, you'll know the vibration. You can practice the vibration and you can act from the vibration and just keep doing it. And you're going to see something shift. The first place the shift occurs isn't in the world of form. It's in the world of your energy. You'll start to feel differently, just subtly. You're not trying to make it happen, as JJ said. You're just allowing. And when you know this, you have a pattern of life right now. This world is held together. And you mentioned it earlier through you mentioned contrast, through the power and the invisible law that, of duality. The way you feel good today is because you have an idea of not feeling good. Or the way you even know you're alive is the idea of dead exists in you. So while we are in this life, imagine what you would really love, get the vibration of it, and then act from the vibration, and you've completed a circuit. And this meditation will help you get crystal clear on what it is you would absolutely love.
I love that. And in terms of where to get it, guys, so you're going to go to jjflizanes.com/dreams. And I'm guessing it's a downloadable MP3. Yes, Mary?
Yes.
Okay. Great. And in terms of where else they can get more of you, because just like me, back in 2008, when I heard you speak, and I thought, why can't she have her own church? And I know you did have your own church, and then you didn't. So besides getting your books and getting this meditation, where can people find out more?
You can go to Brave Thinking Institute, bravethinkinginstitute.com. And everything I'm doing is right there.
I'm just getting it up on the screen.
Thank you for that. bravethinkinginstitute.com. Yeah.
bravethinkinginstitute.com. That's where you can find out more about what Mary's doing, what she has to offer. But make sure you get your Building the Vision of Your Dreams meditation. It's free. Everybody go right now and get it. jjflizanes.com/dreams. Download it. Use it. I want to hear about it. Let me know how it's working for you. Get that blueprint done. make that your 2021 goal to start out with, is getting this blueprint clear so that you can really maximize your time, not waste any effort. Speaking of not wasting any time, I have been recently cleaning house a little bit, like looking at what are the things that I'm doing that do not serve me in the bigger vision of where I'm going, and where have I moved to that other, where people have we've just separated in ways. And I had a teacher once tell me a long time ago, because I would say to her, I recognized that I was a common denominator for sort of relationships changing, friends or whatever. And I said, well, it must be me. And she said, honey, you're on a growth path so fast, people can't keep up with you. You're just growing and they can't keep up, and it's either keep up or fall away. And I was like, oh, okay. So that put a different perspective on it. Not that I still couldn't accept certain responsibility for any behaviors or things that I was doing, and looking at myself, which I try to encourage everyone to do. So you're not expecting conditions to change so to please you. You take responsibility for your shit and own it and heal it and move through it and transcend to the next level of frequency for you, because those limiting beliefs don't help. So, so I've been looking at that, and I appreciate that I'm going to be using this meditation along with you guys. jjflazanes.com/dreams. Let's make 2021 building our dreams. Let's focus on 2021 as a place to say, again, whether it was good or bad, it taught you something. 2020 had a message for you. It's time to be honest. What was it? And what do I do now about it? Where do I want to go? If nothing else, you have true clarity now of what you didn't like, what you need, and where you want to be. And if this is the best tool to come at this time for you to use it to get really clear about what 2021 is going to look like for you, and stop wasting time and energy on actions that don't get you closer to those dreams. So, Mary, I really appreciate today's conversation. I appreciate this gift of building the vision of your dreams meditation. I know you're going to have so many downloads, because A, it's free, B, it's a meditation, and C, it's very directed at what everybody wants. And again, whether this podcast is being aired on nutrition, alternative medicine, or women, men, and relationships, or health and wealth, or fit to love, or spirit, purpose, and energy, which are all my shows, all of the same things apply. You have a dream, you have a vision, you have a desire. You can take the same application of these 3 steps and apply it to that, like Mary was saying about health or friends. I love that about friends. That's so great. I'm going to do that too. I'm going to do that too, that when we move into our new house and our new place in our new area, that we're going to attract, and we're going to work on that. We're going to vision that. And I challenge everyone listening to do the same. Mary, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, JJ, and thank you for your great work.